We can tell you this, our country, Nigeria, is gradually coming close to an environment of insanity, or if you like, bedlam, as we have reportedly recorded the highest daily COVID-19 infection rate of 381. Lagos, the commercial nerve center alone, has chalked up a record daily confirmed cases of 183, and this is official. The country has recorded an aggregated data of 3,586, making it the highest on the continent. We're living in very interesting times. The road ahead is rough, but let's hear from the Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, on this development.
About exactly 1 month ago, we were seeing about 10 cases per day. Then we started to see, 2 weeks later, we started to see 32. Then we started to see about 70. There's a little bit of a lull there because there's a global shortage of reagents, and so we couldn't test as much as we wanted to test. But we've caught up, and now you can see that we're seeing above 100 cases per day. And that shows you that our graph is going on a gentle incline upwards. We definitely have not reached the peak of our outbreak. We suspect that that peak will happen sometime in July or August. And so we're preparing for the long haul and increasing our capacity and our strategies to deal with this situation. This graph shows you where we are in blue, and in red, if we had not put in place any of our strategies, we would be seeing very easily 250 positive cases a day as of a few weeks ago.
Well, gentlemen, we are in dire straits. There's no gainsaying the fact. Sometimes you wonder if figures like this are substitutes for judgment, Jide.
Well, these figures are meant to alert us to the fact that this is a marathon and not a sprint. We took this thing lightly in the beginning. As we can see, there's a price to pay. For every action or action that you refuse to take, there is a price. Today, we are on an upward climb, and a dangerous one for that matter. I'm happy that we have a professional as a head commissioner in Lagos, a thoroughbred professional, one of the best in the world. And as you have seen, he's not the kind of person to get political.
He's not mincing words.
He's not the type of person to get political.
Yeah.
At a time like this, and he's telling us that we will get to that peak in July. It could even be August, because these are just projections. But we know that this thing will keep rising until we get to the peak. And as I told some of my friends, the ill effects of the fact that Lagosians ran out of their homes like bees on Monday will only be felt after a few weeks. We won't begin to feel that effect in a matter of days. In a few weeks, we will see that there has been a spike in the number of new cases.
Yeah.
So it's up to government to do what it thinks is right.
Okay.
If I were the governor of Lagos State, I will take a second look at the situation and I will take measures that could be draconian, but in my view, will help us to defeat the pandemic. There can be no other option but to take drastic measures.
Yeah, Yemi, you had alluded to if we did certain things, if we took certain precautions. Now, we can talk about it. The federal government has accused security operatives of sabotaging interstate travel ban.
It's one of the things that I think is an anomaly in this situation. The fact that there is a travel ban, but people can still freely move around within states. If you got in your car and you were driving to Ibadan now, nobody's going to stop you. It's just, and of course you will also see lots of people along the road as well. So you can even go as far as the north. And as long as you meet the security agencies, agents, and you tell them or you give them whatever information you need to give them, you find out that you are able to pass. And this is a situation that we're beginning to see it coming back to bite us. As of this morning, the WHO is already predicting that the whole of Africa is going to have about 3.5 million cases by July, August. And that if care is not taken, there will be almost 200,000 deaths. And they're saying it's looking like a joke, and then the numbers are daily growing, and now we're over 3,500 across Nigeria, and it's growing. And this is a situation that we're talking about. We've been talking about it on this show several times. That look, people need to begin to pay attention, and even the governments themselves also need to begin to sensitize the people even more than they're doing now. The security agencies themselves. There's a hierarchy in the security agencies. I think all the security men, whether they're military, whether they're police, they need to be called to order. It is very, very important and very critical so that when an order is given across board, whether it's don't leave your house or don't cross across state boundaries or whatever it is, they pay attention and they make sure that they enforce whatever order has been given.
And JD knows that at checkpoints across the country, the policeman is not immune. He is the more exposed of the two parties.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. And we've been hearing reports of policemen testing positive to the virus, policemen or a policeman even going to Ondo State to share the virus to people in a manner that got the governor with the white beard extremely angry. That why should a policeman who knew he was positive or who suspected I was positive, he had been tested, but the results had not been released to him. And then he decided to travel, So it created problems for the state, and the governor of the state was very angry.
Okay.
Someone like the governor of Kaduna State has erected barricades on some of the highways.
I saw concrete.
Those barricades, you need a forklift to remove them.
Oh, yeah.
Or any other health-moving equipment. And I wouldn't blame him. I've seen Yeson Wike going around enforcing the lockdown in the state and even ordering the auctioning of vehicles that breach the lockdown. This, in my view, is a perfect decision to take, as long as he backs it up with the law.
Yeah.
People, we've got to descend heavily on our people who are taking this disease lightly. We have no choice. We have to do that. Because at the end of the day, by their actions, they put the rest of us in trouble.
In trouble, yeah.
This is what people fail to realize.
And willy-nilly. It doesn't cost them anything so to do. The federal government has described the self-isolation policy to authenticate COVID-19 status as a failure. Opts for a quarantine, but quickly, let me make the distinction. Two words have been thrown up by COVID-19. The first one is self-isolation, the other one, a quarantine. What's a self-isolation? It is a process of you staying indoors by election just to keep a distance with the outside world. And a quarantine often used in connection to diseases and illnesses involves the movement of those who may have been contaminated in one way or the other from getting to infect the larger society. So federal government
I think where we are now, the issue of self-isolation would have been discussed maybe 2 months ago when we had lots of people coming back into the country from abroad. A lot of those people, probably more than half of them, didn't go into self-isolation. Some of them just came back and went directly into the population. So that definitely created lots of problems for us because you had people who went into different states and spread the disease. And the issue with self-isolation and why it's such a big failure is that most people don't feel the disease when they catch it. So if I've just come back from a trip and I feel okay, I'll feel like it's not a problem. Let me go and interact with my family. And so that's why...
But there's the problem of a jet lag, which might alter your body temperature.
Exactly.
That, yeah.
So for that reason, lots of people didn't go into self-isolation. Yeah. So it's already a failure because by now, the disease has already spread. So the quarantine now is the one that a lot of people are now saying is against human rights because you have to enforce it. You have to ensure that whoever it is that you want to place under quarantine is now under armed guards. Otherwise, a lot of them are fleeing quarantine, like you saw in Gombe and Jigawa and a number of other states like that. So it's a big problem. The fact that people have not
So you mean the
that
human rightists are on duty at a critical time like this?
Well, the problem with it's a serious problem.
It's not visible.
Yeah, so right now, self-isolation is not working. You tell someone to go into isolation for 2 weeks and stay by himself or at least avoid going out and stay away from people, and they just don't do it. They didn't do it.
All right, the federal government has urged states, including yours and mine, to build 300-bed COVID-19 isolation centers.
They should just build more isolation centers because, as I said, this is a marathon and not a sprint. More and more of our people would get infected and would need care. Elsewhere, people are donating their hotels. Since hotels are not in use at this time, some people outside Nigeria people are donating their hotels so that people can be looked after in those hotels. Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, donated his hotel in Madeira in Portugal, for people to be kept in them and looked after. I would expect that a lot of the Nigerians who have got considerable means can assist government by simply providing such facilities for the use of government, because it takes time to build some of these isolation centers. But if they are already there, all that you need to do, and hotels, for example, if you saw that video from Uganda, they moved them, the government quarantined them, moved them straight into those hotels, and from there they can be monitored. The idea of self-isolation with our people and the defective, the fact that our people lack discipline will naturally fail. You must put them where you can monitor them. And you can't tell people to go and isolate. They've isolated, and after 14 days, they are waiting for you to get back to them, and that's not happening. So a lot of them will just mesh with the crowd.
Okay, then, except Jide, that many of Ronaldo's colleagues in our country would rather opt for nightclubs. But neither here nor there. Okay, we'll take this first breather, but return very shortly. And welcome back. Now, rather astonishingly, 2 states, namely Cross River and Kogi, are yet to record an index case of COVID-19. Nonetheless, the people of these states must be worried by imagined anxieties. But the federal government has dispatched Health Ministry and NCDC officials to Lokoja to work with the Kogi state government so as to boost its testing capacity. But the visitors had a big hurdle to climb. Governor Bello insists the team must submit itself to a 14-day quarantine before anything is done. If they won't play ball, then they must go back. Physician, heal thyself.
This is a very ridiculous development. And I think by now people will have an idea the kind of game that is taking place in Kogi State.
You suspect anything?
The governor of Kogi State wants the world to believe that the state is clean. But this is a lie from the pit of hell. If tests are conducted today, I swear to Almighty God.
Please don't swear. Don't swear.
I choose to swear because I'm sure.
You are a gentleman.
Just leave me to swear. Leave me to swear. Ask me the question.
Please don't. Okay.
If tests are conducted today, just let me answer my question. This is an emotive issue for me. Because I have people there, I have relations there. They are in danger. We are not joking. People are not being tested. Today, at FMC, Lokoja, they will call...
Federal Medical Center.
Yes, yeah. Because the structure is when patients come and you suspect that these patients are carrying the virus, the incident officer is the commissioner for health in Kogi State. They will call the commissioner for health and alert him to the fact that they have a patient that they suspect is carrying the virus. Every time the FMC Lokoja physicians call the commissioner in Kogi, he will say, no, it is not COVID. On Friday, a native of Kogi State, last Friday, a native of Kogi State who is based in Taraba, but shuttles between Taraba and Lagos, came to Kogi State. He was ill. His temperature rose to 40 degrees. He could hardly breathe. These are the symptoms. They invited the commissioner, and as usual, I said, no, it's not COVID. Kogi shares boundary with 9 Nigerian states. If you add Abuja, that's 10. So, and all of the states around them, there are infections.
Cases, yeah.
Kogi state officials need to tell us how many people they have tested.
But the government says it is coping with it in its own peculiar way.
It is not coping with anything. Let them bring the facts. I'm a fact-based journalist. Let them present the facts. What are the facts that they can present to people that they have tested people? How do you determine that nobody is carrying the virus when you've not carried out tests on people? So, the truth is, if they keep calling you, come and look at this person, and you say nobody... Well, I was listening to the senator representing Kogi Central, Hosseini. You know what he said? Let us maintain hygiene, this and that. In a state where about 5 out of 10 persons still defecate in the bush, open defecation taking place in that state. How is it? Can you prove to me that in terms of hygiene, Kogi is the best in Nigeria?
Okay.
The truth is, let the test. When Kano State needed help, NCDC officials and WHO officials, they went there to help them.
Okay.
Did the state turn them back and tell them to go and quarantine them? Is that the protocol? Is that how it's done? That the people who have come to help you in an emergency, you first lock them up?
You mean you would have read the book because I'm involved. Jide is involved, so you won't be a lot emotive as he is.
Why not? Is he not from the state?
I'm from the state as well.
Is he not from the state?
So, there's
2 versus 1.
Is this a matter for which we joke?
It's not 2 versus 1,
Okay.
but there's a problem in Kogi State.
Okay.
And it is very likely going to be like Kano State or even worse if something is not done about it immediately. What has happened with the NCDC officials in Kogi State amounts to an anomaly. It's an obstruction of their work. It is not something that I've seen in any state in this country. These people have come to help. They have come to assist. These are the designated professionals that are meant to handle the pandemic. And then you restrict, not only do you restrict their movement, you are insisting that before they even go anywhere within the state, they should self-isolate for 2 weeks. So, and these are people that probably already have schedules to be in other states within this period of time. So as of this evening, from what I'm hearing, they have left Lokoja and they're heading back they're probably on their way back to the federal capital by now. And they have not been allowed to do their work. So we do not know whether there's been any testing done in that particular state. And testing is one of the biggest things now globally for the control of this disease.
If it was done, the news would have been out.
Yes, of course, we would have known if there was an index case. Now, we should be talking about, I mean, so this is a big problem now. We're talking about capacity problem. We don't know what the capacity of the state is to even deal with, say, 10 cases. And that capacity would have been determined by the NCDC. They would have said, this is what is required in this state. These are the kind of things we need at this period of time. And then the help would have been deployed by the federal government, by the WHO, and even by the NCDC. There's funding already for this particular pandemic. And now the state is refusing.
It was not going to cost the state any kobo.
It would not have cost them anything to have done, to have just said, we need assistance. This is what we require. These are the professionals we need.
Well, let me tell you the game that is on. If President Buhari says today, all the states where they have recorded COVID-19 cases, it will take over the funding of the management of patients. All the states.
Kogi will cave in?
Yes. Yes, I'm certain about that. See, the moment a patient is identified, it becomes the property in inverted commas of the state government. And the state will be the one to take care of feeding and everything. Some states don't want to spend money.
And yet there's a budget for the health ministry in that state.
This is let the NCDC officials come, set up the basis for testing, and then let them test people. When this thing began, we were saying, what's going on? Kano, what is the juju that they are using in Kano that no case has been recorded? I remember even here we were joking about it. In 2 weeks, Kano overtook Abuja. In just 2 weeks. And that's the sort of thing that will happen in Kogi when eventually that governor allows testing to begin to take place. When he allows the NCDC officials to do their work. Because a lot of people now have meshed with the population. You see, if you understand the pathology of this disease, only about 20% of them will actually even need to be hospitalized. In the research.
At the end of the day.
You see people, they are not looking like they are even ill. But they are carrying the virus. These are the people that once they are identified, we need to isolate them so that they don't go around spreading it within the population. But you have a situation in which you are not locking down because you don't want to give palliatives. Once you lock down, people will talk about palliatives. You are not locking down. You are in denial that there is no COVID-19 in your state. In fact, you are famously quoted as saying that is a political disease. The video is there. When the governor comes out to say the disease is political, why are you surprised that some of these things are happening? So the truth is, those people now that we have refused to isolate in Kogi and we are allowing them to go and mesh with the population, they have been distributing it. By the time we realize it, we'll have something similar to the case in Kano. Gombe didn't have any case for a long time now. But what do we have in Gombe now? Borno didn't have any case. For a long time, we thought, Borno, no problem. But what do we have now? Go and check and see how many people are. This is the thing. There is no state. As the NCDC DG said, every state in Nigeria will have their own cases. Remember, even the first Nigerian to die of this COVID-19. You know it's from Kogi State.
Oh, really? I should have known that.
Yes. The first Nigerian to die.
But not in Kogi.
Not in Kogi, you know.
Not inside
the
Kogi.
One who came on the KLM flight also. Yes. So what are we talking about? There are people that are in one state where open defecation is still practiced on a big scale. that so they are the only ones who keep hygiene, who wash their hands before they eat and all that. Oh no. Let the testing begin. Every time the Kogi governor praises President Buhari, he talks about President Buhari like someone that he respects so much. The president needs to talk to him now. Look, the truth is, if we are unable to defeat it in any state, it becomes an embarrassment to the whole country.
Yeah.
And it's the president that they will condemn. It's just like some of those pastors saying that why should they leave markets open and close churches? When in South Korea, one individual in a church infected more than 2,000 persons.
No, Jide, if you know chop,
so we should open churches.
If you know chop, you go fit go church.
So when it happens, they are the same people now who will say this Buhari is incompetent. He has allowed this disease to spread all over our country. Why must we open church?
Let me address President Yahaya Bello, Kogi State. I'm sorry, come in. You are infecting. You are infecting me, Governor Yahaya Bello. Please, Jide.
I can infect you with
no.
something positive.
Okay, it's all right.
COVID-19.
Governor Yahaya Bello, that which cannot be asserted without evidence cannot be dismissed without evidence. I agree, but this is when good sounding logic must take place. Please, you are the father figure of Kogi State. Anything that happens in Kogi, you are
to blame.
You are to blame. Please, I know reason will take place now. I wish you well. I wish you well.
Let's hope reason will take place.
Okay. You know, the irreconcilable will of justice in our country continues to boggle the mind. Earlier today, the Apex Court nullified the conviction of a former governor of Abia State, Odius Okalu, who had been jailed for corruption. Similarly, the guilty verdict passed on co-accused and former director of finance in Abia, Ude Udeogu, was quashed. The duo had appealed their sentencing before the Supreme Court. Now, the grounds of the Apex Court order is technical. Justice Mohammed Idris of the Federal High Court in Lagos, who convicted Messrs. Kalu and Udeogu, was already a justice of the Court of Appeal when he passed the sentences. So the men must face a retrial, just so the viewer does not go home, Yomi, with the fact they have come again.
Yes.
Yeah. And I hear that in law, jurisdiction is like a gospel jurisdiction of the judge.
It's a very big deal. In fact, on the internet right now, especially on Twitter, what people are responding to is the fact that they've used money and there's been a miscarriage of justice in the fact that now that the judgment has been set aside, that there's a problem. Actually, what is going on now is a retrial has been ordered by the Supreme Court. So that retrial, of course, will begin probably as soon as this whole lockdown and the pandemic passes and all of that. But I feel like everybody deserves their day in court and everybody deserves justice at the end of the day. That arc of justice might be long, it might take a while, but justice will eventually prevail. This is a corruption case, obviously, and it's been on for a long time. Mr. Kalu was governor more than 10 years ago, and now we have seen that, okay, if you are involved in corruption, this is a government that will ensure that at the end of the day, you will face
corruption
justice.
cases are not time-bound.
They're not time-bound, but they take a while sometimes.
Okay.
In many cases, it extends into over a decade, as we've seen with many cases. But for this particular one, it is not the end of it. There will be a retrial. It might take another few years, but there's some respite now for the former governor, as he will probably be released within a short time.
Jide knows that the EFCC stung like a bee from the moment the judgment was reversed. It says the thing takes off immediately.
I really pity the EFCC because this matter began in 2007 and judgment came just last year. The matter had been handled by different judges because Odius Okalu tried his best to ensure that justice was not done. He got an interim injunction through the Abia High Court, which was vacated, and then the matter was transferred to the Federal High Court, Lagos Division. All kinds of steps had been taken with the intention of frustrating the course of justice. And then when justice eventually came, we were happy. We didn't know that this sort of thing would happen. The judge, Justice M.B. Idris, sought the permission of former president of the Court of Appeal, Zainab Bukachwa, to go and complete the trial. Because at that point, he had listened to 19 witnesses. And Ojus Okalu's lawyers filed a case of no submission, which the judge threw away and eventually passed a judgment indicating that Ojus Okalu was guilty of laundering 7.2 billion through his numerous companies, especially SLOC at the time. SLOC, when we look at what happened, was Justice M.B. Idris misled? By the way, M.B. Idris is the son of the former Chief Judge of Nigeria, Kutigi.
Okay.
Lebo Kutigi.
Okay.
Was he misled? Because some people will look at this like something that was contrived to make it easy for the case to be set aside. Because the law is clear. You, Justice Zainab Bukachwa, you can only exercise control and power over your own court. You can't give someone fiat to go and give judgment in a court outside your own jurisdiction, because that was a high court matter. You are president of the Court of Appeal, but you gave the mandate for someone who had been elevated to your court, the Court of Appeal, to go and give judgment in a different court. And by our laws, judges are not allowed to exercise authority in two different courts. You can't be operating as a Supreme Court judge and then as an appeal court judge. This is what this judgment says. I am concerned about the fact that ultimately it's not justice that has been done, because the Supreme Court didn't set aside the
decision.
Yes. It did not even look at the merit of the case.
Okay.
It does not acquit Ojus Okalu.
Or discharge him.
No, it does not, because if it had acquitted him, it's like saying, no, the judgment was wrongly entered, or that I was not guilty ab initio. But this was a technical, the judgment was made based on technicalities, and that's why the EFCC called it a technical ambush. You know? So it has ordered a retrial rather than acquit him. He said, okay, go for retrial. After all these years, since 2007, we are talking about retrial. You know how difficult it is. A lot of those witnesses will not come forward again. Maybe some of them are even dead.
Yeah, yeah.
After you've presented 19 witnesses, I sympathize with the EFCC, because this is a particularly difficult matter for them. With the politically exposed persons and the fact that they have deep pockets, it's extremely difficult to defeat them in court, because they will bring the big sounds and the rest. Now they manage to get judgment against one of the politically exposed persons. And look at what has happened.
Yomi, but let me tease you a little. I'm sure you are familiar about this story. A colleague of Uzo Kalu's, who was first governor in this dispensation of Rivers State, got a perpetual injunction. So that's... No. I'm talking of Dr. Peter Odili, got a perpetual injunction. So that's perpetual.
That one is gone now.
It's gone.
So nobody can go back there?
No, it's gone now because the EFCC are now, in fact, right now, they are preparing to put him on trial.
Because there's actually nothing that can be appealed. Why I particularly like the fact that you can appeal to a Supreme Court, and the fact that, again, based on the technicality, I'm not a lawyer, the Supreme Court has sat and seen that, look, for justice to actually prevail, we have to do things the right way. So this is a technicality, and they've said, look, go and retry this case. And of course, it's a big challenge for the EFCC. It's taken 13 years for them to get here. Now they have to go back to the drawing board and, probably over the next 5 years again, trying to try this case. But the truth is, for justice to prevail, we have to ensure that the judicial system is functioning effectively.
Sorry, I wish to quickly conclude that Aman returns to the Senate, pro-COVID, post-COVID.
Well, I'm not sure his salary was even stopped in the first place.
One thing, he was a principal officer in the Senate. I observed that all through the time he was in prison, no effort was made to declare his seat vacant.
As should have been the case?
Yes, no effort was made to declare his seat vacant.
Oh, yeah? And because if you're on trial, you are supposed to give way.
He's even been jailed.
Okay, yeah,
he's been jailed. But they did not declare his seat vacant. Now, that seat was just left there. The Southeast, the Igbos, have been complaining that they have no representation in the leadership of the Senate. The Yorubas are represented, the Hausas.
Name them.
But it's like that thing was just kept there, just in case maybe some people had foreknowledge that this case would be set aside.
Or thought so.
Oh, so so now we need to wait for a couple of days to see what happens. Maybe by Tuesday, when the Senate could sit, it will go back to the Senate and assume his position as a principal officer of the Senate. By that time, people will now understand why the Senate president resisted the pressure to declare that seat vacant so that the INEC can then do a by-election. But that didn't happen for someone who had been convicted.
And we bring it home. When the Supreme Court sits in judgment, the Supreme Court is on trial. In a manner of speaking.
Yes.
So because everybody it's the apex court, after the Supreme Court, you go nowhere else.
Well, usually, that's why there are several, usually there will be a panel and several judges, and then of course there will be somebody who leads in delivering the judgment. So that's why people have a lot of hope in the Supreme Court, because usually sometimes when you then have cases like this or other cases where there's arguments and a dissenting voice, that's why it's the Supreme Court, because there can be a dissenting voice even if the judgment is eventually passed. So people have a lot of hope and a lot of trust in the Supreme Court, and hopefully we don't want that trust and that hope to be dashed in any way.
Okay, all right. It is said that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. We wish the judicial process well. Democracy thrives on the rule of law. And the rule of law is made to bear on democracy by pronouncements from the judiciary. Jide, I think the political class must save the courts this burden. They must allow the process to free will because it can. The Supreme Court should be called in when there are really knotty issues to untangle.
For something like this, I think it was a knotty issue because it had to do with jurisdiction and, of course, the appeal court by comparison with the High Court. So, stepping in at this time to adjudicate on such an issue, I think is a big deal. And hopefully, we'll see what happens over the next few years.
And what has happened is not even, it's not the first time that this will happen. Justice Unemeka Agu had a judgment set aside in 1979 because at the time that he gave that judgment, he was a judge of the Anambra State High Court, but he had been elevated to the then Federal, Court of Appeal, now simply known as Court of Appeal. When he gave that judgment, he stepped down from his position as a judge of the then Federal Court of Appeal to give a judgment at High Court level. So the Supreme Court set aside its judgment. So this is not the first time that this sort of thing will happen, and I think that our judges will learn from this. But the truth, citizen, is that this same judge, M.B. Idris, had given 29 judgments in similar fashion, stepping down from the
willfully or
no, it's like you have.
You say he knew what he was doing?
The ACJA, you know, the ACJA, the whole wisdom behind the ACJA is to fast track the justice system.
Yeah.
Now, the ACJA, section 396 subsection 6 permits this kind of thing to happen.
Okay.
But the Supreme Court is saying no. Where an act conflicts with the Constitution takes precedence. So it's not as if what Justice M.B. Idris did was illegal.
Sorry.
It's just that the Supreme Court had to take preeminence over the ACJ.
Maxwell is so interested in this story. Why not? Maxwell is here in Lagos. Good evening, Maxwell. Are you there, Maxwell?
I'm still with you.
Yeah, let's go, Maxwell. Welcome.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Go on.
Yeah, what Supreme Court did today calls for questioning. At the same time, I wish to remind the other courts, you have many of the officers. You have the Godswill Akpabio. You have even some people carried bullion van in this country. Carried money on bullion vans. Nobody have put them to trial. So,
Maxwell, you can't. Did anybody bring any case like that to the court? That you know? The court does not act on any story. The court is not a Father Christmas.
There has to be a matter brought before
institute a case and.
So let me conclude what I was trying to say. That same judge had given similar judgments in more than 20 cases.
You said so?
Yes, because it's like, look at the point when he was elevated. He had already, it was just close to judgment time. You understand? So, and there were other cases.
Should he have declined?
No. The truth is the ACJA,
which is
which was introduced during the Jonathan era to fast track the course of justice, permits that kind of action. But it's just a case of where an act conflicts with a provision of the Constitution. It is the provision of the Constitution that takes preeminence. That's what those judges of the Supreme Court have said. Otherwise, what the judge did was not illegal. It's there in this, section 396, subsection 7 of the Criminal Justice Act. That was, so what I'm saying is, where a judge had almost finished trying a matter, it was close to judgment time, he could go and just complete the case. That was why the woman, even Justice Bukachwa, in granting that fiat said, in conformity with so section of the ACJA, I permit you to go and complete that process.
Yeah.
So this is the thing.
Andrew is reaching us from Makudi. Are you there, sir? Let's go.
Good evening, sir.
We greet you.
Yes, my people. Please, I will beg you people for setting you people back, because I've been trying to call you people when you was discussing about failure of isolation. My dear, is this a journalist hangout that you people have been mentioning? Look, let the border be closed. let all these people isolate themselves. And you people could remember when they said that all these our lawmakers refuse to be checked at the airport. The only thing that worries me so much is that all these our hierarchy, when they fail to do the right, nobody is going to bring them to up, protest over it. But if it is all of us that we call ourselves minority, they will bounce on us.
Yeah.
This very issue now, Kano State, all that are locking down. This man refused to lock down. Now, 1, 2, 3, he started shouting for federal government to help him.
Okay.
The same thing is going to happen
okay,
at
Andrew.
Kogi, because this man is...
Andrew, we got you first time. Yomi, except that when a viewer advances such a logic, I am saying I don't see any problem with the big man who refuses to submit himself to self-isolation and all that, or a check. It is the enforcement officers. I don't have a problem with any big man, but the news would be when the man makes to enforce the law and he's physically assaulted.
Yeah,
I may be wrong.
A lot of the so-called big men who arrived weeks ago, probably in the month of March and in the month of February, and didn't go into self-isolation, we also need to remember that a lot of them have their ways of hiding. So a big man owns a house in Kaduna and also owns a house in Abuja. You're not sure which one he's in. So if you're trying to go and...
No, but I'm saying he lands at either Lagos or Abuja, and the law says he must go into a quarantine, or he must subject himself.
Well, before the enforcement of the quarantine, it was that you would tell the big man to go home and self-isolate for 14 days. So keep away from people. So you are hoping that he would follow that instruction and be disciplined enough not to associate with people during that 14 days. But that was not what happened. Lots of them went for parties and meetings, political meetings and all of that during that whole month of March.
Including the one at Ibadan.
Yes, during the whole month of March, that's what happened. So that's why we had.
That's why we are here. That's why we are where we are now.
Some were arrested. Yeah. They were actually arrested and taken into forced isolation in Abuja. You know.
Yeah. Let's fast forward.
Justice, they were not going to do it themselves.
The justice system, I hear the wheel of justice grinds slowly, but in a country here, jurisdiction, it's becoming peculiar.
Yeah, the whimsical nature of our justice system is extremely discouraging. I can understand how bad Rotimi and other lawyers, how bad they will feel now, other lawyers of the FCC. And this case was investigated by Magu himself. You know, Magu got trained as a forensic accountant.
I hear he's a thoroughbred officer.
He investigated this case, he investigated Saraki as well, you know, a long time ago, you know, I think around 2003, 2004. So they already established
a prima facie case.
Yes. But the truth is, when you are talking about fresh trial, how many of those witnesses can you then get? Some of them will be prevailed upon to not show face, in inverted commas. So it presents a very big challenge. And for someone like Orji Kalu, I'm sure some of his colleagues will suggest to him that, look, go and
play ball.
Do what is...
go
and negotiate, yes. Enter a plea bargain, forfeit some of what you are alleged to have stolen so that you can have peace. So that is likely to happen. But there are still many of the 1999 to 2007 governors whose trials have not reached any point as we speak, which is what is very, very bad.
All right. I hear we must pack it all in today at this point, but not before thanking you, the viewer. And all we do here is simply help mold opinion, lay the facts before you, and allow you to make up your mind. Thank you for your time. Yomi Owokwe, many thanks for your time. Enjoy your weekend, if you can.
We'll try.
Enjoy your weekend too, if you can. If you cannot, leave it.
I will enjoy it on your behalf.
That's it on the program today and for the week. Join us next week for another episode. But then, if you missed this from the top, join the team on other platforms we'll show on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. The feedback channel remains the same. I am Citizen Jones Hussein. Bye-bye now.